All right, I think we are live. Thank you everyone for joining us today for our path forward. This is a weekly Facebook live show by Care Washington, where we talk about things that are happening in the news, things that are relevant to our community and the work that we're doing at Care Washington. Today, we are going to be talking about the crisis that is happening in Afghanistan and what people are doing in Washington State and here in Seattle to help people, to try to get people out, and the effort also that's happening with refugee resettlement. We are honored today to be joined by Shugla Kakar. She is part of the organization Afghans of Seattle. So we're going to be talking with her about the work that they are doing and also hearing from Shugla about her experiences with what is happening on the ground in Afghanistan, and again, what people who care about this can do to advocate on behalf of Afghans and the work that we all are doing. So thank you, Shugla, so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Jess. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Thank you. We're also joined by Imran Siddiqui, our Executive Director at Care Washington. He's going to be just giving kind of an overview of the work that we've been doing at Care Washington over the last week, trying to help evacuate Afghans. So I want to start by just reading a brief bio for Shugla, and I'm sure I'll miss some things, but so Shugla Kakar is a first-generation Afghan American. She came here when she was 11 years old with her family from Afghanistan. She's one of the founders of Afghans of Seattle, which is a recently formed local organization created for Afghans to advocate and amplify, provide resources to Afghans and Afghanistan, and also to promote community service. Shugla graduated from the University of Washington with her degree in gender, women, and sexuality, and is currently applying to medical school. She was president of MSA at UW, and is an active member of her community. She's worked as an organizer on many campaigns, including the No New Youth Jail campaign. So thank you, Shugla. I'm sure I missed some things.
Oh, that was perfect.
I guess if we could start, Shugla, just by, if you could tell me a little bit more about yourself and about your involvement with Afghans of Seattle, that would be awesome.
Yeah, just like you mentioned, I think I'll just pronounce my name again. It's actually pronounced Shugla, but I just go by Shugla.
I'm sorry.
No, you're totally fine. So yeah, I immigrated to the United States with my family from Afghanistan in 2011. And I knew from a very young age moving here, education was really, really important to me. And I was always really interested in becoming a doctor and really going back to serve in Afghanistan. So yeah, like you mentioned, I recently just graduated from UW, Bothell, actually, the Bothell branch, and a double major in GWSS and public health, and currently taking a gap year to apply to medical school. And during my time at UW, some things that you went over, I was really, really involved within the community at UW and outside of UW. I was on student government all 4 of my years, as served multiple roles, including vice president, president my last year. So represented a lot of students, like I was a student body president, so represented the students' needs to outside of Washington and within Washington, served on multiple diversity and equity committees, representing more than 60,000 students, making sure that UW becomes a equitable space for all the diverse populations that we have. Something else that I was involved with was MSA, like you mentioned. I was on the board for multiple years and served as the president for 2 years. Did a lot of community work through MSA as well, doing a lot of educating about, Islam in general, because there's so many misconceptions that are always going on. So definitely was really busy with that. And the other thing that I've been busy with during my undergrad is also being a part of HHRD, which stands for Helping Hand Relief and Development under Islamic Relief. So I am one of the core committee members in Seattle, as serving as their head of volunteer coordinators, and have done multiple fundraisers with them. We do big fundraisers every year, around 2 with COVID. Obviously that didn't happen, but serving all over the world, helping people all over the world. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've been busy with my undergrad life. I'm very passionate about community work and community organizing. Have been heavily invested in doing the no youth, like the saying no to the prison divestment work, especially at UW. So yeah, I'm just a community organizer, really interested in grassroots organizing. And yeah, that's some of the work that I've been doing. And then recently, with everything going on in Afghanistan, is where me and some of the other Afghan youth came together and founded the Afghans of Seattle.
Thank you so much
Let
for
me know
that.
if you want me to go into detail.
That's my next question, so that's perfect. So my next question is, tell me about Afghans of Seattle and why it was founded.
Yeah, so Afghans of Seattle is a coalition by a lot of that was put together by many like young Afghan American youth that are in the Seattle area. The reason why we created this organization is because there's a lot of misinformation going around about currently like what's going on in Afghanistan. It has been for a while. So we wanted to take power of the narrative and writing that narrative ourselves and making sure that we're getting the correct and accurate information to our community. But also it's not just about getting the information out there. It's about, building our own community and, unifying our own community and giving and empowering the youth of our community specifically to come together. But through our page, we're also sharing resources, sharing different ways that people can help. So we're doing many different things. That is a brand new organization that's got started, but we really thought that it was important that we take the lead on this and kind of speak for ourselves and represent our people. And Afghans of Seattle is not for Afghans that are living overseas, but also serving Afghans that are within the United States. Within Afghanistan currently.
Awesome. And I don't know if you guys can hear, our phone is ringing off the hook. It's been ringing off the hook. So I'm going to be muting myself occasionally so that y'all aren't hearing that. But Afghans of Seattle, so you guys were just founded like a week ago, right?
Yeah, we all came together and founded this organization about a week and a half, because like I said, with everything that was going on, we as Afghans that are here, we have family back home, and we were seeing all this misinformation and all the stuff that was going down, and we really thought that it was important that we all came together and organized the way we, like the youth of Afghanistan, like Afghan Americans that are here, there's a huge number of us, and we really wanted to take, control of this narrative and what is going on, and really be able to be at the upfront because, we are here as Afghan Americans, and we have the power to do so and to organize and to be able to help our community and our people.
What is the handle, really quick? We'll put it, Miriam is doing our tech, so Miriam can put it in the comments as well, but Shugla, could you mention the handle real quick too for people who want to follow?
Afghans of Seattle.
Afghans of Seattle, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Could you talk just like briefly about, I was talking to someone the other day and they said, oh, I didn't really know that there was an Afghan community here. And I said, yeah, there's a sizable Afghan community here. I know when you and I were talking, no one's quite sure the exact number, but it's well over 1,000, somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000. Can you just talk about like the Afghan community here in Washington State and the Seattle area?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think a lot of people, I don't know, there's actually a huge Afghan community here. My uncle was actually, he moved here about, I would say like 40 years ago, and was one of like the founding members of like, wow. He did a lot of Muslim work and was like a founding member of the Islamic school that they started. So there's a lot of Afghans that have been living here for many decades. And we have, like you said, well over like the community that I'm part of, the north side of the community that we call the Afghan community, there we have well over like 500, 600 Afghans in that community specifically. Obviously, we have more on the south side. We are everywhere, and there's been Afghans that have been living here for decades, but quite recently, there has been more Afghans specifically in the South area camps in those areas coming and migrating here or coming as refugees because of all the situation that has been going on. Right. So it's definitely a growing population, but there has been Afghans living here, like I said, for decades that are, well educated. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're engineers, they're, very valuable members of the society, and also just here in Seattle. So yeah, the Afghan community here is huge. We have a lot of like Afghan gatherings, a lot of Afghan events that are about building community and everything like that. We do a lot of community service through these through our Afghan communities organizations. So yeah, we're a very active part of the communities that we live in. Very, very active. We do a lot of different fundraisers for anything that comes up. It's a very active community, and there's a lot of us here.
And you touched on this a couple times, but I was wondering if you could just elaborate a bit more. You talked about the importance of, everyone and their mother has an opinion on Afghanistan, especially right now because it's in the news, and you talked with me about the importance of amplifying the voices of actual Afghans,
Yeah.
specifically right now when we're talking about Afghanistan and the current crisis. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I think this is a very, very important topic to be talking about, especially right now with what's happening. I think for the past 20 years, if you ask anyone, and everyone has an opinion on what's going on in Afghanistan, they will give you an opinion no matter what age they are, because of the media and everything that has been happening. Afghanistan has just always been the center of attention, like everyone's watching it because of everything that's been going down. But I think specifically right now, I'm just going to focus on what is happening currently. And as we see a lot of these refugees coming through, a lot of the efforts, even like helping with like the refugees and all of these resettlement efforts, are being led by a lot of different organizations that, you know, we as the Afghans thing don't really have the cultural competency to be even leading these efforts, you know. And I think that's why I told you that it's very important that Afghan Americans are given a seat at the table, because I don't think they are right now. Even in Seattle, as you know, we're trying to put these organizations together. There's a lot of other organizations that are Afghan organizations, like Afghan Health Initiative. And also there's a very prominent member of our community, Anila, who's been doing a lot of this work. And she just launched she's actually the executive director of American Muslims Empowerment Network at MAPS. And she's been doing amazing work. It's people like her that need to be put in, you know, at the center, and they need to be leading these causes, right? Because I think the first part that I was going to touch on is like all these new Afghans that are coming here. Most of them, especially right now, are very traumatized, and they went through something very, very scary. And so all these organizations, obviously, we are very, very thankful for the work that they're doing. For like, I don't want to be like, oh, we're not, like, it's amazing work that everyone's coming together, and we are supportive of that. But I think it's very, very important that the Afghans are, you know, invited to Afghan Americans, because, you know, they have these lived experiences. Most of them have migrated here and have lived here for a couple of years, so they know what these people went through because they did, or they have family that are going through. So it's very important that they are, you know, that their voices are amplified and that we listen to them, because you know, we can tell people like based on how we lived, like, oh, this is the best route for you, but that might not be. So we need to be amplifying Afghan American voices and giving them a seat at the table and inviting them to be able to do this work with us, with everyone, because I think that is the only way we can be successful in our efforts. And then I also wanted to mention another point, and the whole point, one of the reasons why we did create Afghans of Seattle was because of a lot of the misinformation that's going on. You know, even as Afghan diaspora, like, we have to check ourselves, because we're not living in Afghanistan right now, not going through those horrific situations. So we need to be giving, like, even us, like, we try to give our voice and like listen to the Afghans that are on the ground going through these and get that information out and tell everybody instead of injecting our own opinions. And I think that's also very, very important when it comes to everyone living here. Again, amplify Afghan voices. The Afghans that are here, amplify their voices instead of like injecting your own opinions, because a lot of, like, even me, I was in Afghanistan, I lived there, I have family there. Like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around everything and keep the misinformation from the actual information when I'm getting it from the ground, like keep it all cleared in my head and wrap my head around this. So it's very hard for someone that doesn't have those experiences, doesn't have that background, to be able to be, you know, either doing this work or rejecting their opinion. So this is the time where we really put Afghan Americans and Afghans that are actually living in Afghanistan at the center, and give them the voice, give them, let them do the messaging, let them do the leading, and we all try to help them and follow.
Very well said, and thank you so much for saying that. I couldn't agree more, and I think it's really important that it gets said more now. And I'm going to work with my team at Care Washington to make sure that we are trying to follow that, and also like pushing people as well, the media that I work with. I did connect the media with Anila. I actually forgot that it's Afghan, embarrassingly, but have you talked to the media? This is off script, but have you talked to the media at all, Shukla?
I haven't talked to the media yet. Like I said, we've been so busy with planning the protests and like a bunch of, like, we're, you know, youth with a lot going on. So we haven't talked to the media yet, but we will be, the media will be present at the protest.
Right. Okay. I might, because, you know, media reaches out to us because people know Care Washington, but like I said, we don't have any Afghans right now on our team. So, and I can connect with you or even some of the other folks after this live stream, but I know the media, like, they want to talk to like local Afghans, and like that needs to happen. So maybe we can connect about that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Jess.
So we're going to get to Imran. I just kind of want to lay some groundwork, getting to know you and hearing your thoughts on things. You talked a lot about misconceptions about Afghans or Afghanistan that a lot of people have. I'm sure there's a ton, and it could be about what's currently happening, or Afghans in general or Afghanistan in general. But I wanted to give you an opportunity. If you want, are there some misconceptions that you see that are common misconceptions that people have that you would like to take this time to correct?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. I think as an Afghan living in the United States, every time I've experienced it, when I'm introducing myself, whether that be in a classroom, whether that be in a meeting or anywhere, if I'm saying I'm from Afghanistan, you get those stares and everyone just kind of looks. I think, and it's mainly because I want to say because of how the media portrays like people from Afghanistan, or not even just brown people in general, and like saying like Afghan people, are these barbaric people that need to be liberated, or that need to, that need saving, and are uneducated, and all of these things. And because of the terrorism and everything that's going on in Afghanistan, who are not Afghan people doing this, I want to say, so far from who the actual Afghans are. The media, like everyone, like if you say, oh, I'm from Afghanistan, you're automatically labeled as a terrorist, or like all these things. And I want to say like Afghans are so much like that's not who the actual people of Afghanistan are. And Afghanistan is known, like Afghan people are known for for their hospitality. Like if you ever go to an Afghan house, like everyone would attest to that. They're known for, their beautiful culture. Our culture is so beautiful, with beautiful music. They're known for their poetry. They're known for their food and all these beautiful things that the media doesn't focus on. So I obviously just want to like raise attention to that Afghan people, like you said, the biggest misconception is like they're uneducated, they need to be liberated, and all these things, which is so untrue. Afghan people are very capable. We have very smart people, engineers, like all of these things that I mentioned. So I definitely would love to see the media's narrative of painting all these Afghans in this one way to change, and to really focus on the other things that they focus on for other cultures, whether that be their different aspects of their culture. Like I said, poetry is huge in Afghanistan, and that is still not shown at all to the side here.
It's like the war, this 20-year war has been people in the West, and probably much of the world, their introduction to, quote, Afghanistan, and only lens through which we talk about Afghanistan. What do you think that does to how we view the country, how we view the people? Like, it's just so dehumanizing and one-dimensional.
It really is. And I think that also just goes to the fact that because of the way the media portrays, and because this has been going on for so long, that us as Afghan Americans, as an Afghan activist, like I have to beg people, like when I tell you, like with every, like the past month before the situation got to where it got to, all the Afghan, like all the friends in my circle, like all the Afghan activists here, we were begging people to pay attention to what's happening before, like we were hearing news of, Taliban kind of taking over, and we were begging here, like begging everyone to like raise awareness, like let's talk about this, let's like there's like it's gonna get this bad, and we're begging, like when I tell you, and that comes every single time, like when it comes to Afghanistan, we literally have to beg, but no one turns an eye, like literally, like no one blinks an eye at the situation in Afghanistan. And it's so I don't even want, frustrating is not even the right word, it's so dehumanizing, and it's so I think it makes me like very sad. But also I just get like sick to my stomach with how Afghan lives have become like cheap, like nobody really cares, and that the media has a huge role in that. And like you said, because people have been seeing it through this one lens, it's like, oh, they have war going on all the time, like when Afghan people die, it's like if another country, if a bomb goes off, kills 20 people, it will make national headline. But in Afghanistan, that's like a daily reality for those people. And no one blinks an eye. Literally, no one blinks an eye. So I think it does become very like, I think for me, like, I'm just going to talk about myself. I just look at it and I'm like, did we really get here as a society, as humanity? Like, how can we just sit here and watch these innocent people die on a daily and just be like, oh, they just have it going on all the time. I think it's very sad, and actually it just makes me sick to my stomach, honestly.
We're totally desensitized, and the media has the biggest hand in that. Okay, thank you for everything you're saying and for sharing all this. The last question I have for you, and then we're going to pull Imran in. This question's kind of big. But in your own words, Shogla, could you describe for us the current crisis in Afghanistan and what is happening from your perspective in your own words?
Yeah, I will try to keep this in my words. It is very hard to summarize what is happening in Afghanistan right now, because there are so many moving pieces, different parts to this, that it's like when you try to get in and understand, like it is very hard to understand like what is going on. But currently, like I just want to focus on what is happening right now. So basically what happened was the Taliban came and kind of started taking over different parts of Afghanistan. Mainly they started at the different villages that were kind of away from the capital. And then, you know, I had found, like, my brother was there, and you know, when they took over Kandahar, like they were able to just walk in, and any, like, we were hearing day by day, they were taking another place. And that's where I said, we really were concerned, and we're like, we need to do something about this, because we saw this day coming. And you know, before, like, Kandahar got taken over, which is one of the second largest city of Afghanistan, and you know, the U.S. intelligence, we were hearing reports, they were saying, okay, like, Kabul maybe will be taking over in a month, and then it was like, oh, it's going to be 10 days. But I kid you not, the day that I saw the report that it was going to be 10 days, I literally went to sleep. Next morning, Taliban were outside of Kabul. And basically what happened was the president got on a flight, went, and just left everything to the Taliban. So the Taliban were able to get in to Kabul and just take it over. Some say that this was a good thing that the president left, because it stopped a lot of bloodshed from happening, or like, because if there was fighting, because Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, is such a densely populated city that if a fighting did happen, it would have killed a lot of people. But either ways, the Taliban coming and the US not, you know, doing what they're doing, evacuating and not helping the Afghan soldiers, which I also want to touch on Joe Biden's speech later, where he straight up lied to everyone and said that the Afghan soldiers did not fight. They were able to take over it. And so currently what's happening is, because the Taliban came, there are so many people, which these numbers came from, you know, American sources. There are about 300,000 people that worked with the U.S. Military, or the U.S., you know, involvement in Afghanistan, and all those people's lives are in danger. And basically, what had happened when all those people that work with the U.S., that work with other agencies, like British was there, you know, a lot of different countries were in Afghanistan. All these people's lives are like in immediate danger. And then all the Afghan people's lives are also in danger. I don't want to forget about them. Because the Taliban coming, we know what the Taliban did before and what they're doing now. So a lot of people, all the flights got stopped. My brother was actually on the last flight on Saturday night. And that's when the Taliban came to the airport, and that's where all the chaos started at the airport. Because I will really want to emphasize on this, of how the US decided to withdraw from Afghanistan. That is where all the chaos started. They didn't evacuate their people. They didn't evacuate all the their allies that work with them. Basically told all of them, like, go find your own flights in the beginning. Right. So that's where all the chaos started. And then we also have so that's the situation at airport. There's a lot of people still stuck and trapped in Afghanistan that, you know, their lives are literally in immediate danger. We're getting ground reports from Afghanistan, from firsthand sources that are saying that the Taliban have information of these people that worked with the US, and they're going to their houses for searching, and their lives are in danger and they're trapped, especially with the situation that's going on with the airport right now, and the US still sticking to their August 31st with the withdrawal deadline. And then there's also thousands and thousands of Afghans that have been displaced from other areas that the Taliban were taking over. So they were all coming to the capital. So they are living there without any houses. We are hearing from, like, you know, because of the chaos, other people took their money from the bank. So there's no money going in or going out. Food prices are tripling, doubling, people literally starving because, you know, people that were displaced, because we aren't able to get, you know, a lot of aid into Afghanistan right now. So it's a humanitarian crisis that's happening in Afghanistan right now. And I just want to say the US has a really big hand in that, because of the way they decided to withdraw.
Yes. Thank you so much for that overview. I think I just learned some things that I didn't know, like the food prices and, you know, people fleeing their local villages and going to the capital. So it's been a nightmare. It's been I mean, as an outsider watching it happen, Care Washington, we've been working since over a week. And it's just really snowballed. And it's just, I mean, we've gotten, I think, over 1,000 requests at this point. And it has just been such a mess. And it's like the ground keeps shifting. And I don't understand why the US government has done what it's done. I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing now. Like, it's a humanitarian crisis. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I don't need to talk anymore. I'm going to throw it to Imran, our executive director at Care Washington. And Imran, if you can say whatever you want to talk about with the work we've been doing. Could you just give an overview of like what we've been doing, what we've been trying to do, and kind of where we're at as an organization with this?
Yeah, first of all, just want to give props to Shakla and the youth in our community, just to see like how they've risen to the occasion here, and stepped up, being just out of college and speaking this passionately and firm and directly about this. I wouldn't have been able to do this when I was just out of college. So that speaks volumes to your dedication and activism. So, really proud of the youth that we have here in the Seattle and Washington state area. I mean, we see that whether it comes to Palestine activism, whether it comes to Afghanistan, which, this issue gets highlighted far too, infrequently. So, the fact that you're able to articulate this in such a way that is so easily for us to understand, who may not know about like all of the nuances, that's really appreciated. And, whatever we can do to support, we will. And yeah, I mean, as Jess has highlighted, it's been a major disaster on multiple levels. For the Afghan people, it's a disaster first and foremost, just to see their nation, generation after generation being targeted by occupations and, whether it's seeking resources or colonization or whatever it is. It's just been an endless stream of occupying powers that have attempted to really put their place at the expense of Afghanistan. And as Shagla highlighted, it's a very diverse place with thousands of years of history and culture. This is a crossroads of civilization, with, very distinct ethnic groups and languages that contribute to the mosaic of cultures there in that society. And these are things that get glossed over in the media, especially over the course of the past 20 years. It's been only shown through the lens of the Taliban and repression and, all of these things. When you see even in Hollywood pictures, and it's become like a meme of sorts, where Netflix will make a movie or, Hollywood will make a movie. The sky in all of these, Central Asian or Middle Eastern countries is always like yellow or an orange tint. And like, it's sort of made to feel the world that things are foreign. It's not the same sky that they fall under. So it's just an interesting, misrepresentation of what really exists over there. But in terms of this, we obviously, from a Care Washington perspective, we've been following the situation very closely, and we started getting calls almost immediately after this evacuation was ordered. And in a situation like this, like, people are rightful to be panicking about their families, and we've seen just how this has unfolded in the past few days, because there wasn't a clear plan of communication over the course of the past, months, weeks, or even years in terms of what was going to happen there. So a lot of folks are feeling like the rug got pulled out from under them. And, with the Taliban situation, like, we saw what they were capable of, prior to the 9/11 era. So there's a real credible fear that I think many Afghans have in terms of like what's going to happen after this U.S. presence is there. So, people are calling, and there's families that are U.S. citizens. There's legal permanent residents. There's people who have mixed status families who are calling us and asking us for help. And to the credit of our entire team, our legal team, first and foremost, has done an amazing job. Brianna Ofre has been amazing in terms of like taking the charge, having like specific legal training on human rights law and like understanding what the systems are. And she's connected with people in the immigration law community who are helping sort of triage this situation. So we've gotten a ton of requests from folks that are trying to get their family evacuated during this really super abbreviated time frame, who fear that their lives are in danger. So we've been in constant contact with a great deal of people, trying to make sure that they have an understanding of what the situation is on the ground over there. The situation is changing like on a hour by hour and a minute by minute basis. And so you can imagine, like, I mean, we live a life of privilege over here in the US where your reality on the ground doesn't change on a minute to minute or hour to hour basis. But, the roads that you're going to take, the safety of the folks who are going to the airport, these are all situations that we have to keep in mind. So Brianna and the team have done an amazing job of really triaging these cases. We've gotten a few folks out of the country on these evacuation flights, but by and large, because of the botched situation leading up to this, there's a lot of folks that are in mixed statuses that aren't able to get on these flights and who are being sort of given a runaround because maybe somebody's a U.S. citizen in their family, somebody is not a U.S. citizen, and it's not being reconciled. So this is what happens. I mean, my larger point is when you have an invasion or a war that spans 4 presidencies, like this is what you can expect. Like this is the outcome of just like a horrific, decades long occupation where, you're passing it from the Bush administration to 2 terms of Obama, then to the Trump administration, and now to the Biden administration, and it's balls are being dropped, in lots of different levels. I mean, kudos to the people who are trying to figure out the evacuation now. I'm sure it's not an easy situation, but this should have taken more planning and it should have required more compassion and communication over time. So we've tried our best. I mean, as a small organization, we have limited resources in terms of what we can do, but we're going to be here to try and, help whatever this next phase is. I know the timeline has been abbreviated now to like less than 24 hours, for at least this phase, and just making sure that folks are, understanding the correct information and understanding what the next steps are, whether they've been, evacuated to a third party country, if they have been able to get on these evacuation flights, or if they're now, like some folks and most folks are forced to stay in Afghanistan, and their lives are incredible risk right now. So these are all just considerations, and I would say for folks in our community and in the world community, like, I mean, just continue to keep an eye on this. Like the news cycle feeds so much of like how our perceptions work, and during the Trump era, like he would tweet something out about something, then like the media's attention would turn on to the next thing. But like, even if the media cycle shifts, we can't lose sight of our Afghan brothers and sisters and what they're going through.
Thank you, Imran. Imran, you've talked a lot about how the age you are, the generation that you grew up in, 9/11 was a really like pivotal moment in your life, and really informed like the path that you took in life. As someone who's grown up in the shadow of 9/11 and the resulting war on terror, watching what's happening right now in the news, doing the work that our team is doing to try to get people on the ground out of Afghanistan to safety, what are your thoughts and feelings on all of this? I mean, you're not Afghan, but as a Muslim American and somebody who's really grown up during this whole decades-long war on terror.
Yeah, it's difficult to really put into words, how we feel. I think we're all processing this in our different ways. It's just how the situation has been politicized over the years, and how the Afghan people have been used as a political football. And I've talked to you, Jess, about this, and many others. Like, this was also being painted for many, many years as the quote unquote just war, where there was this level of, oh, we need to be there and we need to do this. And now we're seeing like the ugly end of what occupation does to a society like this. And so, the refugees, are the people that are on our mind first and foremost. And, Shadla mentioned Anila, who's been doing a great job in terms of convening people in the Seattle community, trying to get people together, getting our elected officials on calls and discussing like, what can we do to make sure that these people are prioritized even after the cameras are off. So I think we as an activism community, as folks who are of conscience, who are, working on behalf of human rights, we have to continue to keep our eye on the ball when it comes to this, because refugees, and especially Afghan refugees, have been for far too long just forgotten by this country. And we've got to make sure that we expand the refugee cap in this country. The Trump administration really hindered the refugee pipeline into this country, and it just like created this backlog that exists over here. And so we have to make sure that these wrongs that have been done during the Muslim ban, you can't just repeal the Muslim ban and expect that everything is going to be okay from a refugee readmission perspective. The refugee resettlement organizations have been significantly downsized over the course of the past 4 or 5 years because of these budget cutbacks. The infrastructure for resettling refugees has been, hindered by these types of policies. So we as a country who feel as though we have the ability to spend unlimited trillions of dollars on creating bombs and, drones and tanks and so on and so forth, we need to spend these resources on the people who are most affected by these things, like by these policies and these endless wars that have existed, and expanding these caps, extending these, TPS, for example, temporary protected status for Afghans who are trying to come in, like expanding who exactly is protected under these things. There's a lot of people who are being left in the lurch by this evacuation. So we got to make sure that these people are not forgotten in this process.
I feel like as an American, like this is our mess. And for us to leave in this manner is just like so shameful to me, so shocking, honestly. It's going to be bad, but I thought that it would be more planned out and more compassionate. Like you're like this, I'm honestly shocked. So my question for both of you is, how did we get here? Which is a big question. You can answer this however you like. How did we get here? And what responsibility does the United States have in this situation? Maybe Shugla, you could go first.
Yeah, I think, like you said, this is a really loaded question. And I don't think I could do justice to answering this question in the amount of time that we have. But I think, to put it simply, there were many different countries involved, obviously, and there have always been in Afghanistan. But I think I want to say that the reason why we got here was mainly because of the U.S. The U.S. created the Mujahideen, Hillary Clinton. Like, we have these videos, like literally a lot of people don't know. Like, I've been having conversations with people around me, my community members, and a lot of people don't even know that when the Mujahideen were created, the Taliban were created, like who was behind that? It was the US, and the US literally has admitted to it. So, they created the Mujahideen, all these different, terrorist groups, because, they didn't want Soviet Union to be, to have power over Afghanistan. So once the Soviet Union left Afghanistan, they were kind of like, oh, okay, well, Pakistan, you deal with it. We're leaving, like, we're good. And then obviously, 9/11 happened, and then they're like, okay, now we have to go back and take care of this problem. And then now they created even more problems. So it's like, I think Joe Biden's speech or his first press conference that he did was kind of I don't even want to say a slap in the face. It was just, I was just standing, like sitting there in shock. He literally stood there and lied to the world and said multiple things, one of which was like, this is not our problem. Like, no, this is your problem. The US created this problem. And how can you stand there and tell the world this is not our problem? This is a problem that you created. This is your mess to clean. And I think there was a lot of other things I also want to what I want to point out that I feel like a lot of people, because of when his first press conference happened, we were getting a lot of momentum and a lot of, when he did his press conference, especially to, Americans that are living here, they were like, oh, he was like, we don't want a war. We don't want to be fighting a war that the Afghan soldiers are not willing to fight. And a lot of Americans were like, yeah, that makes sense. But I just want to point out that the situation on the ground was something else. These soldiers, these Afghan soldiers were, they were not well equipped. They didn't have all the resources, especially that are, were not in the capital. They were fighting actually for months, and they did their best. And the Afghan military, or the Afghan soldiers, actually their casualties have been far more than the US has been, any casualties that the US took in all these years. If you take a single year, the Afghan soldiers have taken more casualties. So many of them died for their country. So for him to stand there and to label them as someone that didn't fight for their country was honestly so, like, I can't even put into words how that makes me feel, of him to label, the people that fought for Afghanistan, that literally put their lives there. And there's a lot of things happening on the ground. Most of the soldiers were told not to fight. Their weapons were taken. We have these videos coming out of Afghanistan. So he literally stood there and lied and said that this is not our problem. And that honestly, like I said, I'm just like,
yeah,
like, how can you do that? The US created this mess in the first place. And then again, I'm not saying that the US should have stayed in Afghanistan forever. We didn't want them there, but the way they withdrew is what we do not agree with, because they created this mess, right, with how they decided to do their withdrawal process, which was a mess on so many different levels, which is embarrassing to the United States, because how do you call yourself one of the most powerful countries and you cannot do a simple, withdrawal process, have these organizations and organize different things in place? Like, how do you do that? It's honestly, it's baffling.
Yeah, thank you. It's like, we are all against the occupation. We are saying pull out in the right way, pull out with the plan, leave, end this war the right way, and this is not it. Thank you, Shugla. Imran, I want to give you a chance to answer that kind of open-ended question too. I can repeat it if you need.
Yeah, it just plays into the same sort of narratives that are out there. Like, as Shugla pointed out, the vast majority of the people who are killed by, extremist groups that are out there are other Muslims, other Afghans, other, Iraqis. And because, we're brown people, or Black people in the case of in places like Somalia or Nigeria and other places where Boko Haram or, Al-Shabaab exists, Black and brown bodies are not, prioritized the same way as, Western deaths or casualties are. And so there's very many dynamics. People aren't just sitting there and saying, I'm going to, not fight today. It's much more complex and complicated than that situation. This was, endless streams of death and destruction and fear and, am I going to face retribution? These are things that exist. And this is all happening in that vacuum of an occupation that exists over the years. We only view what happens in an occupation through the lens of what are American interests, but what are the true interests of the people who are being occupied? That's a true question. So it's tough. And, ostensibly you're leaving this place in worse condition than when it started. And this just seems to be a recurring theme throughout the history of Western imperialism. And it's just a sad testament. I mean, it's something that we have to push back against. I think, as more voices from these communities like Afghans of Seattle and, some other national organizations that are coming up, their voices need to be highlighted in front of our policymakers and show them what exactly, is our viewpoint as Afghans. We're not, we're not these people that need to be saved or rescued, or these people without voices. We are people that have, agency, and this is what we want for our people. And so I think, and like I said, I mean, I'm thankful that we have a community like this, and we have youth within our community that have this strong voice. And, you know, I hope that we can work alongside of them to get them in front of our Congress people and like have these difficult conversations and really push them, like, you know, you owe this to Afghan refugees to like expand these caps. You owe this to, you know, the Afghan community to make sure that you do right by them. So these are, you know, some difficult conversations that we're going to have in the aftermath of this. This is far from over. And, you know, like I said, we're not taking our eye off the ball, and we as a community of conscience have to continue to advocate for the human rights of those who have been most impacted by these occupations.
Thank you, Imran. I want to just really quick address the looming deadline. August 31st was the official withdrawal date. Shugla, what do you say to people who say that we need to leave by the 31st because we have this agreement with the Taliban and, you know, we need to end the US occupation of Afghanistan? What would you say to that?
I think, I mean, people are seeing these reports, people are seeing what's happening with the airport. No one saw what with the situation. Like, honestly, I feel like whenever like I wake up every morning and I see the videos, I feel like like I'm in a constant nightmare, like, honestly. And so there's no way that the US will be able to, just like Biden promised, there's no way he will be able to keep up with this promise of saying he will get all of the, you know, all of the US citizens, he will get all of the you know, US personnel, and also the Afghan allies that worked with the US. There is no way that he will be able to do that in what, 4 days? There's 4 days left, 5 days. There's no way that that's going to happen realistically. There's people by the thousands that are trapped, their lives are in immediate danger. Yes. Like I said, my own brother came and told me stories. There's people, they're literally going to houses and they're actually like, they have the personal information of people that work with the US. I'm saying US, but all the other countries too that help, you know, their lives are in immediate danger. There's actually even US citizens that are actually stuck in Afghanistan right now because there's no safe passage to the airport. And with the whole mess that the evacuation was happening there, Biden said he's sticking to the August 3rd. Like, first you promised that to the American people that you will get everyone out, and next you're saying you will stick to the August 31st deadline. These two things don't align together because given the current situation, and like Imran said, it's changing hour by hour. The Taliban said they're not, after the 31st, they're not extending. They're not letting also any Afghans leave. There are many, it's very hard to get to the airport right now. There are many checkpoints.
Yes.
And I don't have to go over what happened this morning with all the bomb blasts, more security concerns. How is Biden going to get everyone out by August 31st? He can't. I know people personally that, I mean, my friends that are in Afghanistan right now, that are trapped. They're literally hiding for their life, but they can't make it to the airport safely. So they're still there. They're trapped. And like Imran said, there's a lot of people with different pending cases, different SIV visas, different P2 visas. Like, there's so much going on. And this is all happening because of the way US withdrew. There was no process. They could have had this, you know, plan months ago, gotten all these people out safely, and then we're like, okay, we're evacuating. So there's no way that they can stick to this deadline, and that is what we're pushing for. We need people to raise awareness. We need people to put pressure on the representatives so that we can move. There's no way we can get everyone out by this deadline. It is not realistic. It is not happening.
I just want to just back up what you're saying real quick. Not that you need my backup, but for people watching, like, what you're saying is happening is exactly what we have been getting reports of happening. Like, we've had hundreds of people reach out and say, please get me out of here, my life is in danger. Yep. We've had people telling us reports that their local Taliban is like stalking them and searching for them, going door to door. We haven't been able to get hardly anyone to the airport because of the chaos and the checkpoints and the violence. So everything that you're saying is what's happening and is exactly the reports that we've been getting from Care Washington. So
yeah, and just to add, I mean, it's infuriating. I'm sure we've seen images over the past few days, like where there's an aircraft that is like heading to Uganda, and it's completely empty. You know, there's like hundreds and hundreds of open seats that are there on the plane. So like this mix of bureaucracy and just like lack of action planning on this part. There's planes that are taking off, but there's empty seats that exist on these types of aircraft as well. So it's just not planning for the gravity of the situation and how quickly it devolved.
I want to talk about, we got a little bit of time left. I want to talk about some action that people can take, or some things that we're calling for to help in the current crisis, and also some events that are coming up that people can attend to support Afghans. So the first thing I want to ask is, what needs to happen to help Afghans right now who are in crisis, and what can people do to help? I'll start with you, Imran, and then actually I'm going to start with Shogla, sorry, and then Imran. We can talk about some of the stuff we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think, like I said, right now, a lot of the people that are in crisis currently, like in Afghanistan, experiencing this, right? There's people that are leaving as refugees that are being taken out on some of the evacuation flights, and there's people that are stuck inside, right? That are trapped inside. So again, there's a lot of different moving pieces to this, but to make it simplified, we need to get as many people as we can out. We need to evacuate these people, especially people that their lives are in immediate danger. And like I said, the number is about around 300,000, and we have not even evacuated 30 to 40,000 yet. Like, that's, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's so much evacuation that still needs to happen. We need to take these people out, and the people that are trapped inside, like I said, people are starving, food prices are going up. We need to be able to send humanitarian aid into Afghanistan as soon as we can. We need to find, like, international community needs to get together. This is a humanitarian crisis. We need to be able to get aid on the ground and be able to help these people. These people are dying. There's so much happening. So I think that's the thing that we can do for the people that are stuck inside. And also people that are here, obviously the refugees coming in, we need to help the refugees. A lot of the, like, including my brother, they left with one piece of clothing. You know, they left their homes, they left their life, they left everything behind. They're coming to a new country. So they need help. And like Imran said, a lot of these refugee programs, a lot of these have gone through major cuts. And there's no way that what the programs that we have in place will be adequate enough to be able to, take on all of the refugees that are coming in. So we need to push for getting more aid, getting more help for the people that are also coming in. We as a community need to come together and welcome these people, first of all, and second of all, they need help. You can volunteer, whatever way we can help. We need to, help these people.
Thank you, Shugla. Yes. I'm sorry, I was just trying to pull up our action alert. The link isn't working right now, but Imran, do you want to go ahead and answer, and then I'll see if I can find our action alert here.
Yeah, just echoing what Shugla said. Obviously, like this Saturday at Westlake Park, definitely want folks to show up for this rally like you would show up for any community out there. So really try to be there and just, like, seeing our community out there. I think will also just help rejuvenate folks and really raise the morale and, like, let folks know that we're all in this fight together. Uplift the voices of Afghan community members like Shugla and many others who are out here doing the work. They're the ones that are going to be able to speak for themselves the best. So I think that's important. Continue to push that out. And the situation, as it is extremely complicated, and it's just going to get even more complicated, with the whole evacuation situation. Like, there's issues that exist at airports where, I saw some reports out of Dulles Airport today where some of the folks that were evacuated, like, there's not adequate legal aid that exists at the airport. So folks are not getting access to attorneys before being transferred out to military bases. They should be able to, have some access. So if there's immigration lawyers, on the East Coast, in places like Philadelphia and DC that can assist with that I think will be extremely useful. There's unaccompanied minors that are being sent on these flights as well. I mean, it was such an unconscionable thing that we saw during the Trump administration, where families were being separated, and the same thing is happening on these flights as well, where folks are having to make these very difficult choices and sending their children, or being separated from their family members. So really keeping those people in mind, like making sure that these unaccompanied minors, if they are having to be resettled with families, that they're being resettled with Afghan families first and foremost, or people who understand what their needs are culturally as well. And we need to speak to our members of Congress as well. Everybody has a congressperson that you can reach out to and let them know to do better, expand those refugee admissions, be first and foremost on this issue. This is a true crisis, so we can't let this die down. And like, we want to see our Washington state offices leading on this issue moving forward. And so those are just a few things. We're going to continue to keep our pulse on the situation as the situation continues to evolve. Like, I mean, we've received a lot of not good news in this past 24 hours and have had to really readjust our strategy, but we're going to continue to keep our eye on the situation and make sure that the folks that are trying to get here are prioritized, inshallah.
I heard Governor Inslee was watching. I don't know if that's true. We'll see. Everyone look your best. No. I did want to say something specific right now that people can do is go sign our action. I'm going to move my notes so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. Go sign our action alerts. This is posted on our Instagram. We've also posted on our Facebook and Twitter, but we have an action alert that is tell President Biden and your congressional representatives to act on the Afghan crisis now. We're asking for a clear evacuation plan to safely evacuate every eligible Afghan before completing the withdrawal. Approve TPS for Afghans in the US immediately, raise the cap on annual refugee admissions, and a whole list of other things. So you can find this on our Linktree, as well as our most recent press release that we sent out yesterday that highlights some stories from people that are stuck over in Afghanistan who we're working with trying to get them out. Our Linktree is just at Care Washington, and there's also a lot of other good resources there. Anila put together an amazing document. Oh my God, all of these resources of petitions you can sign, action you can take, information about the rally on Saturday, information about refugee resettlement, and if you want to like donate your time and resources and get involved in that. And so Miriam's going to post the link to that email that Anila put together in the comments. I highly recommend everyone check that out. And before we go, I want to talk about the rally though, because we're all going to be attending this. This is part of the reason we want to do this live stream, so we could really talk about the rally and promote it, make sure people know. So Shugla, Afghans of Seattle, is hosting a rally at Westlake this Saturday, 2 p.m. The title of the protest is Stop Killing Us. I read that the title is Stop Killing Us. Can you tell us why you picked that title? And also, can you just talk about the rally and like why people should?
Yeah, I will talk about the title first, and then I'll talk about why the rally is important, why attendance is really important. So the reason why we chose that title, so on August 28th, actually, there's going to be a global protest for Afghanistan. So it's going to be happening all over the world, and we're leading the Seattle one. And the reason why we chose to go with this title is because the title is Stop Killing Afghans. And, Afghans have been dying for the past 20 years. This is not something new, but right now we are asking people, the world has been far too silent. It's been far too long. And everyone, just like I explained in the beginning, just kind of turns an eye when it comes to Afghans. And, our silence is what's killing them, because if we had spoken out about this a while ago, maybe something would have happened. And, we as the people have the power to speak out and to actually make stuff happen. And I think, I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of different community leaders and a lot of different, people around me and stuff like that, that really don't understand the power of a protest. And, when a protest is done in the right way, it can be very powerful. We're not just going there. I think a lot of people say, oh, it's a protest, you're just going there and you kind of scream two or three chants and then you just go about your day. I think it's very important, like if a protest is done the right way, if people actually were to follow the information that we give them and to do the action items that we tell them to do, we as all these people are here, we have a voice, and we're very privileged to be able to use that voice. So I urge people to, take advantage of that privilege, because a lot of people around the world don't have that privilege. We have that freedom here, and our voice is powerful. And, if we all work together, we can put pressure on the representatives to be able to, remove the refugee camp, have an open door policy, to be able to, get this aid to, Afghanistan, the people of Afghanistan that need it the most. And to be able to, extend the deadline or the evacuation deadline, which is very, very important, because there's literally people trapped here that literally when the US leaves, they will die. So I think it's very important. And again, I want to say there's power in numbers. So I want everyone to show up to this protest on Saturday. Please show up. Like, I don't care. Like, I've been begging people, like, show up and support, for the one time, like, just like Imran said, just like, you know, we stand with every other cause. I was the first one that was there at the BLM. I was the first one there at the Palestinian protest. So please, I urge Muslims, non-Muslims, everybody. This is a humanitarian issue. This is a humanitarian crisis. You don't have to be Muslim. You don't have to be Afghan to come and support the people of Afghanistan, because if you're silent, your silence is literally killing Afghans.
Yes. Thank you, Shubha. Yeah, we are going to be there. Please come out. Now is the time to support Afghans. There's also a Twitter storm happening tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. So, oh gosh, what time is that? 10 a.m. our time tomorrow, with the hashtag evac Afghans, or excuse me, let me make sure I get this right. The hashtag is, oh my gosh, you guys. I lost the toolkit. We will post about it. I think, no, it's hashtag Afghan evac, excuse me. Before we go, any final thoughts from either of you? Any closing comments? This has been a great conversation. I think we've talked about so much. And I do want to say before we go, Shubha, I am thinking about you and your family and people that you know back home. And I can't imagine what you're going through right now. And just the fact that you came on here and like shared all this really important information with us is amazing. So thank you. Thank you for taking time to do this.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for reaching out and for the support. I think the support hasn't been there for a long time, and I'm glad that I'm seeing a lot of different people, like, you know, come in solidarity and show support, including CARE. But I think, just to summarize, I really want to say, please show up to the protest and please support, you know, Afghans. And again, amplify Afghan voices, Afghans on the ground and Afghan Americans, put them in these tables, invite them to these conversations, because they should be leading this movement that's happening. And they should be, you know, the ones being included in these conversations, because I know a lot of the especially the refugee settlements that are happening here, a lot of them don't even have any Afghans in the leadership boards of what's happening. So I think that's very, very important for that to happen, because like I said, for many different reasons, cultural competency being one. So yeah, I hope that we can all work together to like get these people this help that they need, which they haven't been getting for a long, long time.
Yes, that's a great way to end it. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We will post links to things that we mentioned in the comments, and hopefully you will see us next week for our path forward.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Imran.
Bye.
Bye, guys.